Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're
The Time Travel Trio. All right.
back again.
Just doing it. Just keep doing it.
Killing it.
You know?
Podcast game.
Mm-hmm.
Don't call it a comeback.
We've been here for years. Speaking of years.
Speaking of years.
This is
Almost 3 years, yeah.
We find a way.
We will get there. Hyde, what did you pick?
It shows the Netflix original film, When We First Met, came out literally this year around Valentine's Day, 2018. It stars Adam Devine, Alexander Daddario, Shelley Henning, and King Bach from Instagram.
Is that literally his Instagram name?
Yeah, that's his Instagram name.
Wait,
I think his name's Charles Batchelor in real life.
Oh, I thought you were talking
Andrew
about
Batchelor.
I thought you were talking about Robbie Amell.
No. Oh, Robbie Amell's in this as well. I'm talking about Andrew Batchelor. He's an Instagram comedy star, and this is like one of his first big movie parts. He plays the
stereotypical,
like cool black guy who's also stereotypical business friend.
Yeah.
All in one.
Yeah.
He only has one friend.
If you add two stereotypes together and put them in one character, it actually makes them somewhat complex. It's like a complexity illusion.
Yeah, it's like two two-dimensional characters fused to make an almost three-dimensional,
right?
Almost. Or like a fake like cel-shaded character, that isn't quite 3D.
Yes, actually, that's beautiful. Anyway, so this movie.
The synopsis says, Noah spends the perfect first night with Avery, the girl of his dreams, but gets relegated to the friend zone.
Dun dun dun!
Oh my god, the end of the world! He spends the next 3 years wondering what went wrong until he gets the unexpected chance to travel back in time and change that night and his fate over and over again. So... Yeah. I mean, this is a new movie, so none of us purposefully watched it because we knew we were going to cover it.
Yeah.
So, what did you guys think?
I will say this, because in this review I'm going to criticize a couple of major things that bugged me, but all that being said, this movie was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. There are some nuggets of pretty nice wisdom in here and just perspective. I was very worried that it was going to be kind of a sexist romp. It definitely leans towards it a few times, but no more than any Hallmark Channel movie does in terms of like, okay, yes, we get it, boy meets girl. We're not getting into the nuance of relationships. That's fine. Actually, edgy Hallmark movie is one of the first things I thought at the end of it. I was like, this is an edgy Hallmark movie, which is not a bad thing. I like Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
But, so, I'm going to say some mixed things, but I want to say I did not dislike it.
Okay. I was, I guess, going in expecting to loathe this movie on the level of Hot Tub Time Machine, because it seems very similar to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad for me. I never want to see it again. And I do think it's sexist. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it is very idealized. Maybe idealized isn't the right word, but it gives a very grand illusion of how men should approach women in relationships. And I have issues with that. But it's
Yeah, I agree. It was like you said, Jen, it's like, I didn't hate it, but it was kind of just boring. Like, Netflix movies always kind of seem off a little bit to me. Like, I mean, they're TV movies, literally, because, like, I can't imagine seeing this on a theater.
right.
Like ARQ was good, but I don't know. Like, that was one that I was like, okay, that one is, like, not the same kind of off, but other Netflix movies are kind of just like, something's weird about them.
Yeah, Netflix has, like, the cream of the crop, like, they're Mudbound and all that jazz, like, get a lot of praise, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of stuff that just would never make it into the theaters.
Yeah.
I know...
For a reason.
I know Steven Spielberg got a lot of flack for this, and I don't fully agree with him on this, because I think when Netflix is on, they make really good stuff that are worthy of being nominated for Oscars, because they do... Thing is, Netflix does release some of their films that they... like, Mudbound was put into movie theaters.
Yeah.
That's the only rule to get nominated for an Academy Award.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had some disagreements with Spielberg. But, that being said, I think Spielberg has a point where he says... Netflix and this whole idea that streaming services are going to replace going to the movie theater is kind of a dangerous idea, because they don't deliver. Imagine watching Infinity Wars for the first time on Netflix. It would have been such a totally different experience than what we got to experience. And sometimes you just need to see a movie with a bunch of strangers. That sounds weird to say, but it's true.
Yeah, I'm all about going to the movies.
Yeah.
And I even see rom-coms in theaters and stuff. Like something like Love, Simon was great, and was something that could have played on Netflix or in a theater, and it did play in a theater, and people still went to see it. Something like this doesn't bring anything new to the table,
Right.
especially rom-com wise. It is one of the most, and like, granted, this is with the caveat that I watch a lot of rom-coms. This was maybe one of the most predictable rom-coms I've seen in a very long time.
For sure.
And that's saying something, because I watch Disney Channel movies, and those are very predictable for children. But this movie, like, nothing...
Yeah, nothing like really shocks you or surprises you.
Right, and not that it has to have twists because it's time travel or anything like that. Like, it's fine. You can just have time travel as, as a vehicle, and that's fine. But what's the purpose of this movie? That's kind of where I was kind of questioning, like, what were they trying to really accomplish with this movie? I even read something online that it took them 6 years to make this movie.
Really?
And...
But why? How?
Right. Why? How? But also, maybe it kind of makes sense because it's not very good, and maybe they just were trying for so long that, like, it's just bland. It gets bland.
Like, I mean, if it was... Okay, like, assuming Adam Devine wasn't there from the beginning, this movie relied on his... Like, he's an EP of this movie I saw at the end, and, like, I see it in the movie because I actually watched Workaholics. Like, now it's not as funny as it used to be, but, like, same kind of thing. I'm kind of over his whole shtick. But several things that he does in that show or in this movie, like his whole squint and lick your lips, like that, he does that in the show a lot. That's like one of his things. If that's kind of what he brought to this movie, what was it for 6 years? Like,
I don't
the
think
story isn't that unique.
Yeah, they must not have had Adam Devine until recently on the board.
Yeah.
Because probably getting Adam Devine was able to get Alexander Daddario and Robbie Amell, and I'm sure it wasn't very hard to get Andrew Bachelor to do it. So it's like they just needed that anchor to be like, this is... Because Adam Devine, I mean, he has his own Comedy Central. He has 2 Comedy Central shows. Because he has Workaholics and he has House Party where he brings on other comics. And like, I'm with you, Matt. I watch Workaholics. It's not as funny as it used to be. But in its prime, and in Adam's, when Adam's on... And you get little flickers of that in this movie.
Yeah.
He's very funny and charming. I mean, Pitch Perfect, you see a lot of that because he's also in very small burst in Pitch Perfect. But, and I'll talk about it a little bit later when we get into the episode. I actually think he has 1 or 2 decent dramatic moments which will definitely, for bigger producers of bigger films, might make him more comfortable to hire him on a more dramedy type scale. But this movie just... It never quite hits the mark with anything. There are some funny moments, but never a moment that was like, oh, that's so funny. There are some sweet and charming moments, but never a moment that was like, oh, wow, that was really heartwarming. Like, that really made me think about something.
The thing with rom-coms is that you need to...
You need to get rom?
No. Well, yeah, but you have to want to root for particular characters to get together.
Right.
Whether it's the main characters or whether it's not. Like, I'm not, I don't have a problem with the fact that, like, it was kind of telling a 500 Days of Summer story where it's like he was pining after her and they're not meant to be together. That's fine. But if that's the case, 1, it shouldn't take you 90% of the movie to tell that story, which this movie did. And 2, we need to want him to be with someone else. Okay, as soon as her friend Carrie showed up, I was like, oh, he's gonna end up with her, it's very obvious.
Right.
Like, the second she was on screen.
Right.
Just, like, how they showed her, they gave her way too much of, like, a screen time for, like, her opening scene of, like, taking random photos of people, which, by the way, is a really obnoxious shtick and is not a personality trait, so whoever wrote that is an asshole. Oh, it's a man. Go figure. Doesn't know how to write women. Sorry, but it's true. The women in this movie are very bland.
But she's a photographer. That's
Candid.
That's her
not,
character.
That's not a thing.
She is a photographer.
That's not... Anyway.
Yeah.
but just how it was just too obvious, and like that's fine, but then all of the interactions between Noah and Carrie until really the last third of the movie were very standoffish, very negative. It wasn't, I knew that they would end up together, but it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to see them end up together.
Well, they also, it takes way too late. I'll talk about this again a little bit more when we get to a certain part in, like, I know what we're going to talk about like later in the story, but it takes way too long to get to this point. And I don't want to be the kind of person who makes a negative comment about a movie that I would have liked to have made instead of what you gave me. But I think the filmmakers missed an opportunity. I think the first act of this whole movie should have been, yes, he's trying to get with her, and then speed up the, like, him seeing how terrible things is. And at the end of the first act, or right when the second act kind of getting to the middle of it, that's, because I really liked the scene where he's rich, and he's finally with her, and then he realizes that she doesn't love him, and he goes into the kitchen, he's talking to her, he's like, why doesn't she love me? And that was a great moment. But unfortunately, it happens way too late in the movie because it's already...
like Act 2, end of Act 2.
Right. We've already figured all this out. If that was at the beginning of Act 2, and then the rest of the movie was him trying to figure out, how do I get to know her friend better? How do I make this relationship work? That would have been very interesting.
That's what it should have been. That's what a successful rom-com would have done. Is like, it needed to have him fighting more for wanting to be with Carrie, because this whole time we're like stabbing ourselves in the eyeballs because we're so tired of hearing how much he's just obsessed with Avery. Oh my god, Avery. And I don't think it helps personally that I'm not super like insane about Alexandra Daddario because she's kind of annoying. But that aside, it's way too much. And we see the party so many times, we don't need to see every single conversation from the first time that they meet each other in the quote-unquote like normal timeline. We don't need to see every single step of that. You can fast forward that. That should have been so much faster. And even like the times when he did it multiple times, I get that it's not a Groundhog Day situation where he does it hundreds, thousands of times, and that's fine. But even still, like, I get that you're repeating this day and you're, dealing with the consequences afterwards. But, like, after a while, I'm like, okay, show me how you meet at the party, show me how you change something, and then move on. Yeah. It takes too long.
And it also robs us of some chances for some really funny comedy. Like, I think as he tries to fix things, things get really crazy. The thing is, with all of his time travel stuff, nothing gets crazy enough. I mean, well, I don't know what job you can do in 3 years that would give you a house that big.
That's what I was going to say.
And a maid.
And literally started as an assistant.
Yeah,
you don't go from 0 to SVP in 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. That also, or that just means that, wow, dude, you really shouldn't be at a piano bar because apparently you are super good at business.
Yeah.
Well, you work every day nonstop. That's what happens.
Right. Business. Numbers.
We have to, before we get too off track, let's watch the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That thing.
That thing.
She was the girl of my dreams.
That was the moment I knew that it was love.
We met 3 years ago.
You are a league of their own, right?
Are you Garth?
Excellent.
What is your favorite drink?
Grapefruit juice with vodka and 3 maraschino cherries. Hey, do you want to get out of here?
Yeah. It was the perfect first date.
These things are so much fun.
But I waited too long. And then I got hugged.
Oh, this is so nice to have a good guy friend. I can't even tell you.
To Ethan and Avery.
I'm in love with Avery. If only I could go back and do everything differently.
I could be the kind of guy she would want.
Could you tell me what year it is?
It's 2014.
Holy shit. I just traveled back in time. Right now, I have someone to meet.
What's your favorite drink? Mine is grapefruit juice with some vodka and exactly 3 maraschino cherries.
That's my favorite drink, too.
What?
This is the psycho I was telling you about.
You didn't guess that I was an army brat. You already knew that. You're a stalker.
Stalkers wear like trench coats and no underwear. And I am clearly wearing underwear. Look.
Hit him in the balls, hit him in the dick!
The photo booth is a time machine.
This is gonna be the best night of your life.
I can deal with best night of my life.
Just follow what I do. Ready? What's up, girl?
What's up, girl?
Are you doing a Joker impersonation?
This is like, it was good.
If all else fails, be an asshole.
Be an asshole.
Not hard asshole, soft asshole.
Don't forget your leather pants.
Oh my God. I went full asshole.
I have no control over any of this. I make a decision and then I wake up 3 years later with the consequences. I thought things were supposed to happen for a reason.
Things happen for no reason at all, but they create opportunities. The question is, can you recognize that next opportunity when it matters the most?
As long as I keep dreaming on, I keep dreaming, I keep dreaming on, I keep...
Hey!
Oh my God.
That's the stalker!
I got a bomb! He's got a bomb! I got a bomb! It's fine. I'm sorry my bomb threat ruined your magical evening. Have a great life.
I keep dreaming on.
So yeah, that's
true.
you know,
And
that's
it's the whole movie, too.
That's pretty much the whole movie.
With a few caveats, obviously.
Mhm.
Basically, everything in the
A
movie
little
except
bit
for the
more
third
carry.
act.
Yeah.
Actually, that bomb scene is actually probably one of the funniest parts of the movie, where he has the bomb and then
Mhm.
he just yells after him he's like, "Yeah, you better come back with
More than a bomb.
More than a bomb." Like, no, don't say that.
There's no less. He's like, oh, I mean, less.
Less
Yeah,
of a bomb.
Yeah, that
Less
was
of a
pretty funny.
bomb.
Yeah, I mean, like the big moments of this movie is like it's telling you this is a funny moment. Like they're not that funny.
It's almost like a laugh track, but without one. You know?
Yeah, exactly. But like the smaller moments were like in the party where some guy goes like woo and he like woos himself. Like
Yeah.
that little stuff. I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. But like the big stuff, like you know them beating him up. It's like that's all right, but it's not like hilarious.
I wish they were a little bit more specific about what age it was, because it took me a little bit to kind of realize where they were in life.
Right.
I think I was like, oh, is this like a college party or what? Because like and then eventually I was like, okay, I guess they're just young 20-somethings.
Yeah.
Mid 20-somethings. There's a mention of like mid-quarter life crisis or something.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know where they're living, but like that's a college party. That's
Yeah,
not
for
a
sure.
that's not like a 20-somethings in
Well-
full out Halloween costumes, like mad rager, like that type of party.
As someone who's been to New Orleans on New Year's Eve, which is apparently the third biggest holiday in New Orleans, so that's the third. Mardi Gras is actually number 2. Halloween is number 1. That is the craziest New Orleans get, is Halloween. And this movie, it looks like a Tuesday night for New Orleans. Like, I was there on New Year's Eve, and let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You are not going to be able to find a booth in any place to, like, there's going to be no free piano. Well, maybe since he worked there. But I'm telling you, man, that place is crowded.
So so either it needed to be like less or turned up more, but it kind of is like in the middle.
Yeah.
And so that's why I felt like, oh, I could see this as a college party. Like that's the kind of thing, like kids would dress up and whatever.
Yeah.
But like 25-year-olds aren't gonna get in that type of full out costume.
Yeah, lots of strangers,
honestly,
you know.
I mean, maybe New Orleans is an exception.
Maybe. New Orleans, like, Halloween is like their Christmas.
But like, I just, from the 25-year-olds that I know, dressing up isn't like a cool thing, really.
Right.
You know? Not to that extent of like some guy painting himself green because he's the
right.
Hulk. Like he would just be shirtless wearing Hulk hands.
Right.
He wouldn't
Yep.
be painted green.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Minimal effort.
Yeah, minimal. That I would have believed more. That's kind of.
Well, I think that's the problem that this movie continually runs into, and that it doesn't know if it wants to be romantic, it doesn't know if it wants to be a comedy, and so it ends up kind of stuck in this weird middle, which, I mean, I know that sounds weird when I'm saying it's a rom-com, but no, I mean, all rom-coms are distinctly either very romantic and sweet, that with comedy splashed in, or very funny with romance splashed in.
Yeah.
Like, there's no you honestly can't have a 50-50 relationship in a rom-com. It does not work. And this movie tries so hard to have both romance and comedy.
But both fell short.
Both fell short because,
yeah.
I mean, I don't dislike his character. He doesn't do everything that's like outright super creepy. He does some stuff that's like, just like, how are you a grown man and not know that doesn't work kind of things. But he doesn't do anything that's like, he's not ever like disrespectful. He's not really trying to get in her pants the first night. He actually just wants a kiss. That makes stuff like that does make him a little bit more tolerable of a character, as small as it is. Also, I would be a little confused too if I were him and I went over her house and then she's kissing on the cheeks like, you're cute, and then she's like, no, just friends. I'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, I certainly would not become obsessed like he did,
right.
But I certainly would be like, that was weird.
Yeah, and that's, like, I agree. She's kind of, I mean, I was going to talk about this later, but Avery's kind of the biggest dick of the movie. Honestly,
yeah.
and there's a lot of reasons.
No, there's some problems with her character.
Especially at the end. But,
yeah,
she's kind of a dick, and I agree that, like, she definitely led him on. She was flirting with him. I will definitely grant you that. My issue, and I agree with you, is that he takes it as like a personal offense.
Right.
For
That's
3 years.
3 years. Maybe 3
and
days.
And then continues to be friends with her. So my question is, okay, look, that's fine. If you're like butthurt because some girl doesn't want to have sex with you, that makes you a dick, but okay. And then, you know, you still continue to be friends with her and pine after her because you figure that's like a better solution?
That's what I think.
Did you watch When Harry Met Sally? Come on.
I think that's where the movie gets messed up. I know that happens very early on, but I think that's kind of the defect in the film is that he's so obsessed with her, and it wasn't like they dated. It wasn't like they dated
it was just
and
one
things
night,
went wrong, and now he's trying to figure out, well, where did we go wrong?
And it wasn't even like they had a date and had sex or like, you know, like it ended like very, like they made out or something. Like that didn't happen.
Right.
Like I would give him a little bit if like they had made out and then she like stops and is like, actually, I changed my mind.
I met this guy in the grocery store
that
today.
Would be totally different. Yeah. And like, granted, Robbie Amelo's a lot better looking than Adam Devine.
Robbie Amelo's a lot better looking than most people.
But yeah, I mean, we'll get into Avery's bitchiness, but you know, time travel.
Yeah,
right?
There's a photo booth that can send you back in time. Well, I guess technically your brain.
Really, it only sends him back in time.
Only his brain.
To that
well, he
party.
makes a wish. It's kind of like Big.
Yeah, he
big.
makes a wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he makes a wish, and the powers that be grant it, and then he keeps doing it until he's done doing it, I guess. There's no real time travel stakes. It's just like, oh, try again.
So why does he deserve to do that?
Because
to learn a lesson.
He's the main character of the movie, I guess. There's no other reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because he's the lead.
Yeah. It's just, you know, like, I wish... I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, you know, it's... At first I was like, okay, I don't like how they do this, you know, because he jumps back into his body after the change of that night, and then he, like, doesn't really know what's happening. But it's, like, I was like, okay, it's a little bit similar to Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh, okay.
In that he wakes up in a body, and he doesn't remember it the whole life for the past 3 years, but people's do. So I'm like, that's kind of cheap. Everyone, like, lost the person they were with for 3 years, you know, like...
Right.
You know, but then they kind of hinted towards he knows certain things that he like he can speak Chinese.
And he knew everyone's name.
And he knows everyone. Like, I was like, okay,
yeah.
so it's in his head. It didn't erase the person that he was for 3 years. He just like, you know,
just basically like refire the synapses.
Yeah. Well, his memory didn't adjust for the time travel. It just continued as if like that's the next day. It just happened to be 3 years.
And he still had the same skills and stuff like that.
Still the same skills, the same whatever. But which actually I think is kind of a plot hole because sometimes he has those things, but it seems like only the time when he was more successful was that actually the case that like he had things that that he could do somehow. But in other times,
there's no other.
It was weird because, like, then he couldn't play piano,
right?
And that didn't. But that didn't make sense to me because
he was too busy in that timeline.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if he still had those memories, that's a memory thing.
He should also have.
He should still be able to play piano because
If
for
it only
him, he
feels
played
like-
2 days ago.
his hands are his like muscles aren't like.
I think they kind of skirt the line and cheat it to how they wish. It doesn't feel to me that it's clean, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I still dislike that he wipes out his past self for 3 years. Like his wife, they probably had stuff that they did in common that he has now no memory of. My same issue with Hot Tub Time Machine, but at least he remembers some things.
But like the thing though, in the very last circumstance, is that that's actually not the case because he lived those 3 years, and then when he went back the final time and everything was the same as it was, more or less. Most of his memories that he had are still the same. It's not like he jumped forward 3 years and never lived 2015, 2016, 2017. So, yeah. I mean, yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah, the alternate timelines.
Yeah.
When he was married, when he was getting engaged to Avery, he has no memories of that.
Right.
Right, but that's, yeah. No,
I mean, in the end, it's different, obviously, because he's back in his regular timeline. But yeah, I mean, in those instances, like, the way that they use his time travel... That always annoys me whenever they do that. Whenever they just erase a character's memories and like.
I feel what you're saying because it's almost like an ethical issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Which which he does multiple times. Also, I mean, I know we mentioned this earlier, but any reality where you can gain 40 pounds but still get Alessandro Daddario is pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, it was out of pity in that.
Yeah. He will also
not pity. Sorry.
Rich.
Yeah,
I mean, clearly. I mean.
I said it before. Avery is the biggest asshole in this entire movie.
I mean, you're a little. I mean, I know we'll get into that later, but yeah, I mean, it is weird because like the movie does do some interesting things with the tropes. I mean, they do a ton of tropes. Like he literally looks at a newspaper.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he actually he seems like the kind of guy who would
play the lottery.
Play the lottery.
Yeah.
I guess for him, it's like he does not really care, which, if it weren't so obsessive, would be almost heartwarming that he really doesn't care.
But it doesn't even make sense with his personality because when he is rich, he's like so obsessive about it. Wouldn't it have been more interesting if he got rich because he had played the lottery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I don't know. Everything's just kind of
the moral quandary of that, of like, you get what you want, but you had to kind of cheat your way to get there.
Yeah.
And then kind of that maybe spirals. I think that would be more interesting versus like the ridiculousness of, oh, you're going to be senior VP of this management company in 3 years from being an entry-level assistant.
And then I think his friend's all upset because somehow he didn't get the job. Now I'm like, well, dude, this dude literally is flying to Charlotte and coming back to his own wedding engagement. This dude is on a level of commitment that like almost no other human being ever is going to be at.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why he didn't.
And if he didn't do it, he would be immediately fired. That is an insane like non-realistic workplace.
I mean,
at all.
The entire work scenario in this movie is unrealistic.
It is so ridiculous.
This was written by people who don't understand business. The place is called Corporate and Asset Management.
Yeah.
That right there.
It's literally the most bland.
Yep. Generic office building.
We do business.
Business. It's the scene in Lego Movie with Alison Brie where she's like, business. Numbers. And, I mean, all jokes aside about how poorly business is written, any company, if that guy's doing that well and then if he misses one meeting that you're going to fire him, that's the dumbest management ever.
Why would you promote?
That dude's going to get swooped up so fast. If he's that good, and then you're like, well, we fired you because on the day of your engagement party, you wanted to take a half day.
Any company would be
instead of flying to and from Charlotte, which is like, that's like, unless you're meeting, I was thinking about that. Unless you're meeting at the airport, that's like a whole day. Like even from New Orleans,
right?
That's not that close.
It's not close
it's
at
also,
all.
It's also really easy to telecommunicate. It's insane.
Right. Just video conference. Like it just was like, it was a weird. I almost wish it was a dream or something. Of like, I could see that maybe that's how he saw business because he didn't understand it. He went to business school, but he loves he loves music, so he plays piano at a bar,
in New Orleans.
dream?
It's the Los Angeles for
weird,
jazz.
Sure. It was just like a weird...
Yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness going on.
And I was also like, oh, great, another white guy that loves jazz.
Yeah.
La La Land.
Yeah, La La Land. I know.
This is, you know what though?
And like forces it down everybody's throat. Don't you love jazz? Don't you love jazz?
I know a lot of movie buffs are not going to like this, and one day I'm going to be looking for a job, and they're going to pull up this clip. But I actually cared.
If they're willing to go through 80 hours of this podcast
to
find this clip,
you can't have this
then
job.
they deserve to not hire you for that job.
Ryan Gosling
dedicated.
and Emma Stone, even though I adore them, they're going to be like, we heard this one time you didn't like something that we were in, and so we're not working with you. But I wanted Adam Devine's character to get with Carrie way more than I wanted Ryan Gosling to get with Emma Stone.
Yeah.
I was like, Emma, run. This dude is no good.
Yeah.
This man is trying to show people up on a piano bar at Christmas Eve in Los Angeles. Like, first of all, you went to LA for jazz.
Right.
At least Adam went to New Orleans for jazz.
Yeah.
Think.
Sir. This movie has definitely a lot of problems. But at least it's not as sexist as we all thought it would be.
Yeah.
It is still kind of a problem that, like, the whole crux of the story is because he doesn't want to, be rejected and put in the friend zone.
Yeah, I know. And it was like, once the hug happened, it was like, atomic bomb, like, horrible.
Right. It was
like,
the most dramatic thing that I was
zone.
150% sure that the writer had experienced something exactly like this, and this is how he dealt with it, was to write this movie and, like, pretend
Here's how I got over it in 3 years.
Yeah. I'm just like, dude, first of all, there's other women in the world, and, like, you have a job. I'm sure there's women at the bar that you could pick up. Like, you're telling me that this guy is gonna reject all the sleazy women that his friend Max has been picking up just because
yeah, right?
He's pining for Alexandra Daddario for 3 years? I
Alexandra Daddario is very pretty. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like she's the only pretty girl in the world. Certainly not the only pretty girl in New Orleans.
or in her friend group. Like, for 3 years, did he just, like, never talk to Carrie to know that she likes jazz and he's a jazz musician?
To be fair, Carrie does mention that they haven't seen each other in years. So, I'll be a little fair to the writers there. They do explain that they don't talk a lot.
All right. I mean, yeah, maybe, her and Avery aren't always together, because she's there to be a photographer, not to be her best or bridesmaid or whatever.
Yeah, and she seems very good with leaving the engagement. So it's not like Avery and Carrie are super. I don't think they're they seem more like roommates than best friends.
Right, but okay. So since we're on this, I want to talk about why Avery's such an asshole.
Oh yeah, she stole all of our friends' stuff.
Avery has no personality of her own. She's one of those women who changes herself, and for reference, I'm going to go ahead and throw in Ann Perkins from Parks and Rec in this, because that's a comparison. Not that Ann is as much of an asshole, because she's not, but in Parks and Rec, Ann, there's a whole, maybe not a whole season, but there's a story arc where Ann dates all these different types of men, and she adopts their personalities. And so at one point, Leslie tells Ann, you need to figure out who you are as a human being, separate from whatever guy you're dating, whoever you're friends with, whatever. Okay, that's good. In this movie, Avery tells whatever guy she's talking to, whatever he wants to hear, whatever he'll agree with, whatever. And it's not oh my god, me too type of stuff, but she somehow is
no, this is my
adept
thing.
enough to know what she can say that will impress the men, I guess is how I would put that.
Right.
And so, in the end of the movie, we learn that all these things that Noah loved about Avery were actually personality traits of Carrie. And he just never bothered to, I don't know, look into it deeper or something. But, Avery doesn't really like jazz. She stole, Carrie says she stole it from her. Carrie's the one who's interesting and fun and is her own person. And Avery and Robbie Mell are honestly made for each other because they're both the most bland white people I've ever seen in a movie.
They are that couple, and you've all seen them. Blissfully
happy.
Every friend group has this couple. And that is that couple that, like, you don't know what they do outside of, like, the moments you're with them. Like, you have no idea what kind of people they are. They're kind of like blank slates.
Mhm.
You're like, they're a cute couple, and that's really all they are.
Right.
Like, Robbie Amell, I mean, part of it is because Robbie Amell's playing, like, kind of a pseudo-antagonist, so he's not going to get a ton of character development.
Right.
But you have no idea who Robbie is. Like, this guy just shows up. You know he likes CrossFit, because anyone who does CrossFit has to say it.
Yeah.
And that's it. Avery, it turns out, has been like a parasite of interest and hobbies from all of her friends.
Right.
So much to the point that
what is she even like?
Right, she goes to Halloween dressed up as a character from a movie she's never seen.
She's never even seen a League of Their Own.
Like,
come
what?
on.
It's just, and I will say this first, because it has to be said, this is a female character written by a male.
Yeah.
So that is part one of the criticism of that. So let's keep that in mind before we go too hard on Avery and Alexander Daddario. But I know men and women like this. The Ann Perkins example is a very good example because at least they give a lot of nuance and character development with that.
And she learns from that, yeah.
But there are people like that who...
And Avery will never learn from that. She's going to be into CrossFit and exercising and whatever because that's what Robbie Amell does. And that's what their relationship will be. And, like, they'll probably just... I can see them as, like, almost like a Stepford couple of, like, when no one else is around, they just sit completely still and silent and, like, just like,
stare.
frozen statues, like, staring at the wall until, like, someone calls them or, like, something happens or someone shows up at their door and then they, like, activate. But, like, when no one is around,
right,
they just sit and do nothing.
Like that guy in Parks and Rec, the politician who sat at his desk and
yes.
walks in like, so you watching TV? No? Just sitting here staring forward.
The perfect politician literally does nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the same thing with her. Avery's perfect because she does nothing else. We don't know what her job is. We don't know what she's really into.
No, she does,
Oh, that's right, charities.
benefits.
Yeah, charities.
Which is
like,
the most...
I do charities.
It's
Yeah, okay,
That's
sure.
not a job. Like, okay, it's fine to, like, put on benefits, but you're an event planner then, and you don't specifically only do it for charities.
Right.
That's not how that works.
No, you work for a firm or for a company that does events.
Or you could, like, specifically, like, oh, I put on events for this one specific charity, and I do all of their events.
Yeah.
You can't, like, have both of, like, oh, I do all kinds of charities for
Freelance.
everything good and great in the world.
This was the writer saying, we need her to have a job, but we also need to have with this job an example that she is a good person.
Right.
And they were like, and then someone in the meeting was like, firefighter. I'm like, no, that's too much development. She does events for charities, kids, the homeless, sick people, sure, whatever. It tells the audience that she is not only a good person, she also has a good personality. So that way they don't just focus on her personalities.
Yeah.
Personalities.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, that's just... Though, credit that her costume is not a slutty costume. Kudos on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys want a spider break and cut
Can
this
we
out?
please?
Tell the spider?
I cannot focus
Guys,
until the spider is gone.
There's a spider in here, and, like, Jen and Matt are just staring at this spider.
No, it's me.
And it's like you want to squish it because it's just like, now that you see it, you can't unsee it. And you're just like, we need to kill the spider.
I have a huge fear of spiders.
Mm.
Spider-Man is I'm very, like, Batman about it, though. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. But I have, like, such an, like...
I mean, it's on the ceiling, that's why.
Look, like, at the corner of my eye, behind my head, and if there's a slight movement of something that's out of place, I will see it.
And spiders, that's just bad. I mean, to be fair, spiders, like, I'm not afraid of them, but they are kind of creepy.
I mean, for the record, I'm not afraid of them. I was aware of it, so Jen wouldn't lose it, you know.
Sorry, I wasn't saying, like, you were afraid of it. Let me also say for the record, I'm not saying that
I'm the killer, she's a spotter.
You're right.
True.
Like, he's killing the spider right now.
If
he
I
was
sound
afraid
far
of them.
away, it's because I am. The spider is right above where our laptop is. Which, by the way, please don't drop the spider on my laptop. My book is on there.
She's just trying to, like, she's trying to,
keep my distance
just
in
keep
case
her
it goes
distance.
flying.
Like, and then, you know, if
That
it's a
has
Spider-Man,
happened.
Spider has a dive bomb. Oh,
He
got
always
it.
has to show me, too.
Ooh, Matt, he did it. Look at that, and he crunched it.
Confirmed kill.
Confirmed kill. He's gonna be on a kill streak soon. Soon as he's gonna get that nuke.
I'm literally sweating right now.
We are making so many people listen to this episode squirm right now.
I'm so sorry. I'm squirming too if it makes you feel any better. Let's get back to
I hope Ryan Gosling and
romance.
Emma Stone are listening to this episode now, and they're squirming.
Ugh. Now that
But
we're
yeah, no.
spider-free.
Avery is kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I feel bad for him, but I understand his frustration when he literally, no matter when he gets together with Avery, she always finds a way to end up with Ethan. Like, she ends up, like, whether it's like
it's
basically
like a fate thing.
Yeah, emotional affair with Ethan, or she's clearly going to cheat on him with Ethan. Like, there's just no way they can avoid it, which I have problems with. First of all, I love that we literally have an example of time travel making someone into an asshole.
Oh yeah, a full asshole.
And, this is perfect.
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
Thank you. Because it does. I mean, it's not his fault necessarily. He's just following the misguided advice of his friend.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
But here's the thing: if Noah's been friends with Avery for 3 years, he really never learned these things about her, like her personality.
I mean, maybe she is that kind of person that like doesn't really. I don't know.
Yeah, she doesn't strike me as someone, and we also don't know how close of friends they were. He's just there because he's obsessed with her.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
They may not be super close friends. I mean, he hasn't seen Carrie in 2 years.
That's true, and Ethan doesn't really know who he is.
So it's not like he's probably stayed in contact with her over like Facebook, and they ran into each other every once in a while.
That's fair.
I have a problem with that him being an asshole actually works. Because, yes, it does work in real life, but it also shouldn't in this situation. Like, he's not being a charming asshole. Like, he's not being someone, there's nothing he does when he's being an asshole to her that's charming.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe him pointing to her into the pool, maybe, but not really. And then the fact that he becomes an asshole. So then, somehow, we assume, over those 3 years, he became an asshole. He even admits at one point, kind of, to Carrie, like, I'm doing this so she will love me. And then she's just going to skedaddle with Ethan anyway. And you're like, so wait, did she basically tell him that she wanted him to be this way? And then as soon as she finds Ethan, she's like, yeah, I'm out. It's like, which I get. It's actually probably one of the more realistic points of the film, but at the same time, you're like, it just paints her in a very bad light.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, he was a booty call that would see her every few months, you know, like...
Right.
Yeah, so I don't think she was like, I think she was just kind of...
But it honestly felt like everything that she did was because the writer of this movie, like, has some... butthurt experience from some woman who did something like that to him, and, like, this is how he gets back at her. Honestly, that's how it feels. It feels like a writer being petty, and, like, I agree. I don't think, from what we saw of Avery's personality, like, at first she comes across as, like someone who's stronger, can stand up for herself. She says no sometimes. When she doesn't want to talk to him, she'll, like, walk away. But yet, she regularly sleeps with him. It just is, it seems off.
Yeah, unrealistic.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, and also weird is, it's weird when he wakes up 3 years in the future, or present day, whatever. The autopilot he was on is like, it's like autopilot in your car. You set it to a certain, like, mile per hour, and then you just let it go. Mm-hmm. It's like, however he leaves that timeline, that's how he just, like, autopilot goes, you know, like, so he stays being an asshole, even though it's not his personality. Mm-hmm. It seems like he was an asshole in all aspects of his life.
Well, it's...
Yeah.
To me, it's like the movie is saying, okay, you chose to go this route at the party. I'm going to show you the consequences of doing that every single time.
Beneath
the powers that be.
Yeah.
Beneath all these social missteps and, like, outdated tropes, there is a point, there is a message of don't change yourself for someone else because they won't really like you. Mm-hmm. The problem with it is the movie gets close. There's actually a point where I was like, oh, okay, maybe this movie's going in a different direction than I was expecting. And it's like a bike on like the end of like the Tour de France, and then like it just starts wobbling.
The speed wobbles, yeah.
It doesn't crash. It does not crash, but it never quite. It's like it just keeps going around and everything. And by the time it gets over, like 8 of the racers have passed it, and you're like, this movie, maybe 20 years ago, this movie would have been a little bit more like, oh wow, what a nice message. We don't see that in rom-coms, but we've had so many movies like this that have told this so much better, and it's so one-sided that we don't really care that he learns a lesson.
Yeah.
Because either this movie needed to make Avery more of a character, or they need to make Carrie more of a discernible character. The few bits we get of Carrie are interesting, but we never fully realize. Like, I like the scene where they go on a date and he realizes, oh my gosh, everything I liked about Avery comes from Carrie. Carrie's the one who has cultured this woman into something that...
Which, like, Carrie needs to drop her as a friend, honestly.
Right? Like, Carrie is like...
And then in one of the timelines when he's rich, like, Carrie mooches off of them? It's just weird.
That was weird.
Yeah.
That was weird. I was like, what? I mean, it was such a forced way to keep her around. Like, because... And it was so unnecessary, because she comes in like, hey, I delivered your pictures from the engagement. Okay. And it's like, I live with you. What?
It's like, why couldn't she have just stopped by because she's their friend? It was so weird.
Like, why do we make this jump?
I agree with you. And at one point I was like, I actually like that the guy has to change for the girl for once. I was like, okay, that's a nice difference. A lot of rom-coms are like the girl thinks she has to change, and then in the end she's the one who realizes she was pretty all along, blah, blah, blah. She's all that, etc. Every movie ever. But it ends up being, though, that because Avery was such a just shitty character and shitty person, like with no personality, that like it didn't connect at the end. It's almost like the writer didn't realize that what should have been. It's like, yeah, he should have realized that even if Avery is like a great person and they have stuff in common, she should just be that. And like, he realizes, okay, you know what? We're not meant to be romantic. We're meant to be friends. Nothing is wrong with her. Nothing is wrong with me.
Yeah.
There's other people for me. That is the message that this movie should have done. Instead, it's like, oh, I'm not meant to be with her because she stole her personality from her friend. So I'm going to be with her friend.
Right.
That's what this movie told, and that's not okay.
That's where the movie makes a mistake. Because at first, you're kind of with him when he's like, I'm going to go back in time and make sure they end together. Because they're so miserable apart from each other.
Yes.
But then he falls in with the friend. And I thought when the movie said like, oh, the time machine is gone, I was like, oh, wow.
That was
I thought that was really great.
That was
for
the
a
first.
minute.
Yeah, that was the first stake, and I was like, oh no, you still have it. It's in your house.
Right, it's in your house.
It's like, oh,
what?
okay. Well, that was a minute where we thought.
Yeah, it was great. I was like, oh my gosh, he's
drama.
going to have to actually deal with the consequences and not have an easy white man fix.
I thought, like, oh, this would be interesting. Like, he messed it up with her, he's messed up with Carrie, and he's helped Avery get together.
And then he has to live with it.
Now he has to live with it, and he just has to, like, go out there and try again and start all over with his newfound knowledge.
Nope.
Instead, he gets a do-over, and I'm like, no!
And we have nothing change.
Right.
And literally nothing changed. I will give the movie this. I did like that even without, like, things changing, it wasn't like, okay, he jumped to the future and they were together. I did appreciate that, like, she had gotten back together with her ex.
Right.
I did appreciate that.
But that one night doesn't erase, like, years of, like, their personalities.
Yeah. But then, in the end...
Right. And that's them going for the easy answer, the easy fix.
Right.
But it could have... I will honestly say, if the movie had gone with the time machine's gone forever, and now you just have to like live your life, and maybe you'll get with Carrie, or maybe you just have to find someone else, I would have been a little bit more happy with the overall product, because I think I would have been like, you know what? It did a few things, paint by the numbers, but in the end, it just took the paint bucket and splashed it all over everything, and I would have appreciated that.
Yeah.
But hey, if that's what you want, go watch 500 Days of Summer.
Right. Well, 500 Days of Summer, he also kind of is re-putting himself into a loop. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, true. But, I mean, at least in that one, there is before he meets her and after he has accepted being without her, there's like a 30-second moment where he's like, okay.
Oh, I realized something.
Yeah. But no, you're right. That's, yeah.
I think this kind of covers the consequences of time travel.
Yeah,
very well.
there isn't really any physical consequences. It's more emotional, if anything.
Yeah. The timeline, I know you mentioned this earlier, but the timeline when Max is just pissed at him is just so ridiculous. Because that guy is nothing but a giant dick. Like, he treats women so poorly.
Right, he's a very unlikable guy.
He's such a douchebag. He's very unlikable. He basically treats all women like they're strippers who he's already paid for, and that's how he lives his life. And when he's wealthy, it's like worse. It's like at least when he's like trying to work his way up the corporate ladder, he's like trying for something.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
That's what the game does to dudes.
Yeah.
I guess.
To those dudes.
I mean, his friend, I don't know. His friend is just like, why? Why are you like this? Like, it would have been totally fine to have a friend who has game, who's very successful, who also isn't like a misogynist jerk. Like, why couldn't he? I mean, I do like that he flirts with women and he strikes out, but not that he has to go that far and be.
But
that
he
disgusting.
doesn't always strike out. I think it would have been more interesting if like he tried that and it never worked. Not that he tried that and most of the time it does work.
Right. Yeah.
It's disappointing, and most of the characters in this movie are not very likable.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't really find Noah to be very likable. I don't get what his ambitions really are in his true self. I don't like that he's, pines for her for so long. There's nothing that I feel I can relate to him. Like, at first I was like, oh, you know what? He gave up, like, business because he wanted to do music. But he never, other than, like, the fact that he takes them to the bar, that's the only really, like, music that he honestly
he has no
cares
aspirations.
about. Right. He
also doesn't know who the jazz musician was. Apparently, like that first time around, he's like, "Oh yeah, I know this song." It's like, "Oh, that's not by him." What is it? Boss Skaggs or whatever.
Yeah. He just. It's like he maybe is aware of that guy, but he doesn't really know anything about him.
Yeah, he had to like Google him.
Right.
Yeah, and then he spouted off Wikipedia facts later. Yeah, it was weird. He's just bland.
Right, they're all
bland.
They're all kind of bland. Yeah. It's like they're all bland. I guess Carrie's the most interesting of what we get of her.
Yeah.
But she also has the advantage of we don't have to see her flaws or development. So she's just kind of like there. She's just making out with Jello Shot Girl.
Guy.
Then you find out, guy.
Sorry.
Girl, that'd be different. And then she's making out with Jello Shot Guy, and then you find out that that's her ex.
Right.
Which, and again, we've all been there, but most of us writers have been there when we were in high school or middle school. Like, this just reads like, I want to be like, who hurt you?
Also, like, how is this not a college party? Like, these people are all weirdly friends with whoever's throwing this party?
Yeah, right.
It's so strange to me. And I would have liked to have seen, like, okay, well, why did she have to get back together with her ex? After, like, they didn't hook up at the party, and he had that good date with Carrie.
Right.
And then it ended up she still wanted to get back together with her ex. I was like, okay, that's fine, but why?
Why?
Because you made out with him for 10 minutes at a party and you hated him, and it made you really bitter. And so, what changed?
Yeah.
Without him doing nothing for you. Because he didn't even, like, the first time, he didn't even interact. They just made out.
Right.
You know? I don't get it.
I mean, I think, and you guys can all go around with this, I don't know when it was exactly. I don't think it's one particular moment usually. I don't know what point in my life I just realized, like, oh, people, if someone doesn't like you, they don't like you. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there's nothing that, like, changes that. But I will tell you this, I was definitely graduated. I was not a graduate from college by the time I figured that out. Like, not that everyone has to learn at the same pace, but this just seems like something, it would have made more sense for them to be in college or even high school with this kind of lesson. Because it just seems like, how do you not know this at this point?
Yeah. And it's also, in the same sense of what you were saying, it's also okay to realize that you don't like someone and you don't have to be friends with them.
Yeah.
You know, that's also an important lesson. But you're right. I think they're too old to be learning this lesson at this age.
Right.
So there you have it.
I feel like Matt is like about to. I feel like you have something you want to say.
No, there's a
So-
lot of non-time travel things because the time travel isn't that relevant. So
Yeah.
it's just a way for him to
Surprise, surprise.
just fail multiple times. That's
Yeah,
all.
it's just a vehicle.
There's no scientific accuracy in this.
Yeah,
film.
no, it like the light turns red and it flashes multiple times,
Uh-huh.
and then like he wakes up on that day. So it's kind of like his brain gets sent back. I guess
I do.
That's
I
kind
do
of-
appreciate that it's always like the same time that he wakes up.
Yeah, that's something.
That's. I mean, it's a little thing, but that's
Yeah.
nice consistency at least.
Yeah, there wasn't the same thing where like he figured out the day, like Groundhog Day. You know, where he like knows everyone. You know, there's none of those moments where he was like the god of the world because he only did it a few times. You know.
Yeah, which I'm glad actually.
Yeah.
I think it would have gotten
I-
really old if
I
we
agree.
had a montage of
Right.
doing it hundreds of times.
And him knowing knowledge never seems to benefit him.
Yeah.
Right,
which is
because
nice.
he's very ignorant as a person, I think, and that's probably the part of the problem of maybe not realizing that Avery didn't really have much of a personality, or like not realizing that like Carrie was the one who had stuff. Like Carrie's costume was great. I thought that was so clever.
Right,
Yeah,
Dunkin'
Dunkin'
Donuts.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you mentioned, it's not super relevant to the story. It's really just a tool for him to try again back in time.
It could have
So,
been magic. It could have been
Yeah.
anything. I mean, they could have found a bajillion different ways for him to have to relive this over
Yeah.
and over again.
Yes.
And it would have not changed the story that much.
And he also could have just talked to Carrie and figured out that she likes jazz, and that would have solved the whole story too.
Right.
Yes.
Without
Saved
time
us all
travel.
some time. Yeah. I will mention, I liked that he wanted to tell everybody about time traveling. We don't always see that. A lot of times people
Yeah.
either keep it to themselves or know that people will look at them like they're crazy, which is still the case for him, but at least he's like, no, I'm going to tell everybody. I was
Right.
like, that's kind of fun. I like that.
Yeah, he was seeing
he
the back in
tries.
time song.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was a funny back to
He's
the
like,
future
I gotta go back and fix the past. He's like, what? I'm doing it. All right. I mean, because
It was like,
they're not gonna remember
okay.
anyway. You might
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
Say,
it's
like-
hilarious.
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
thought that was a fun bit.
Yeah.
Would you want to experience this time travel?
I mean, we've had this discussion before about going back in your life and changing things. I like where I'm at today, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
change it.
I've
'cause-
already learned that lesson of like, yes, I've been through hardships in my life, but if I hadn't dealt with that, I wouldn't be the person I am right now,
Yeah.
and I
Right.
don't want to change that. So
Yeah.
it's not
And
worth it
plus-
for me.
And plus 3 years, that's when Jen and I started dating. And
Ah!
I don't want to change that, so.
Look at you.
No.
Look at you. And he kills spiders, ladies and gentlemen.
You better. That was a contingent of
Yeah,
our
right.
relationship.
Yeah.
See what happens when you don't try time travel? You end up with people who can kill spiders.
Yeah.
I want to say really quick, I really like some of the costumes in this movie.
Yeah.
And we've gone on them for some sexist stuff in this movie, but kudos to
Mhm.
the
I
filmmakers for not going in on the sexy costumes route. All the costumes were very clever. Carrie's not dressed up. Even when she's like, oh, this is a scene where Carrie looks super hot. She's not like...
She's just wearing black.
Yeah, she's wearing black and like a little more makeup. Like it's not...
Mhm.
Like the movie does... I have to say... it
surprise,
never goes-
surprise! The costume designer was a woman. There you
Megan
go.
McLaughlin. She did a good job.
Yeah, she did.
Like, all the costumes really cool. The American Dream costume, hilarious.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was really funny.
I also felt really bad for the guy who was
She's done
dressed
a
up
lot
as
of good stuff.
AC/DC.
Yeah, that was a funny bit.
That guy was in other stuff. I recognize his face, but he's
Yeah.
always like kind of a Stifler-ish kind of character.
Yeah.
Sean William Scott,
Mhm.
look-alike kind of guy.
So, yeah. I mean, the movie did not feel like New Orleans, even though they were shooting in New Orleans. Did not feel like it at all. But the clothes and the costumes, I really did enjoy.
Yeah, I did too. All right. Any other notes you guys had about the film?
Yeah, I think we
went
we
through
hit everything.
all of mine. All right, let's do ratings. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
For the movie, it was fine. I didn't hate it. It was kind of boring. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 10.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to see it again. I didn't hate it. Some moments were, kind of funny, but I didn't laugh out loud, I don't think. And the stuff that they thought was funny wasn't really that funny, so it's kind of like a swing and a miss for me.
Yeah, I want to give it a 3 out of 10, I think. Kind of there with you. I didn't... Yeah, there was a lot of things that, like, could have been tweaked slightly and would have made it more enjoyable. If I'm going to watch a rom-com, I want the characters to be together, even if it's not the characters who are supposed to be together.
Right.
Like, I want someone to be with somebody, and I felt a lack of that because I think maybe there wasn't enough humility in these characters, something like that. And just, they weren't willing to give and take for each other. It seemed like everyone was kind of looking out for number one a lot of the time, and that doesn't always lend itself to romance. Surprise, surprise. So, yeah, 3 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be a little more generous. I guess I'll give it a 4 out of 10, just because even though it wasn't great, there was something that was god-awful about the film. You know what I mean? Like, the acting's not god-awful. Even though the characters aren't super likable, it wasn't to the point where it was like, oh my gosh, you are annoying me. Shut up. I don't want to watch any more with you. I'm with you. I don't want to watch this movie ever again. But it wasn't, like, torture watching it either. It was very much, like video wallpaper kind of movie. Like, it's on and you comment at different points. I will say, much like La La Land, where I instantly, like, when the characters meet and I instantly realize I don't want these two together. As soon as she, like, I mean, look, if she doesn't like him, she doesn't like him. For sure. I get it. But as soon as they had that kind of experience, and then she was like, you're a friend, like, we're like, I'm just going to give you a hug, and like, that's it. I was like, yo, who are you?
Yeah, you don't invite someone back to your house. Like, they should have been, like, he could have maybe walked her home, and they could have done that on the doorstep instead of, like, going inside, eating the cereal, and, like, there are other ways you could have been clever with your writing to figure out how she could meet Ethan.
Right. Now, they known each other for, like, years and had classes together again while this was taking place in college.
Yes.
I would have totally gotten that. But the fact that, like,
they had a legit date.
Look, that was a legit date.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on here about, like, what's a sign, what's not a sign. I would have been so confused, like, leaving that apartment. Like, I think if that would have been reversed and a woman had been like that, she would have been like, what just happened? Like, I thought we were going someplace. That being said, that confusion would have lasted 3 days, not 3 years.
Yes.
So, I mean, whatever. Yeah, I can't get behind a movie that instantly makes me hate the idea of the couple being together.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Time travel?
Time travel, I don't know. There's no real, like, meat to how it happens or any real consequences, and I hate the whole, like, erase the memory. At least they had some, like, mechanical memories that stayed, like the names and the Chinese language, but yeah, I don't like it. I don't like how they use all that stuff, and kind of just boring, and a photo booth, and the flashes light, so let's say a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, that's where I was at too. I had, as we kind of mentioned earlier, I had problems with, like, sometimes there were things that still resonated with him from the 3-year gap with, like, new memories, and then sometimes there weren't any.
Right.
And I felt like that was kind of a misstep because it could have been easy to have, like, just little tiny bits of something that show that he had some weird, like, recognition of some sort of memory that happened over the last 3 years or something. But there wasn't all the time. So, yeah, photo booth, to me, it's lazy. A lot of the stuff in this movie just feels like it's stolen from other things, whether it's Groundhog Day, Friday Days of Summer, La La Land, or even Big. Like, it's, there's nothing, I think I said this at the beginning, there's nothing new or original that this movie brings to the table, even time travel wise. Like, we should know we've done so many of these fucking movies, but there's nothing new here, and there needed to be for it to be interesting at all, even for people who don't watch a lot of time travel.
Right. Yeah, I feel you. If you're not going to do something new, your characters have to be so likable that you don't care. You're just along for the ride. Right. Like getting on a roller coaster again for the second time or something.
Like, time travel itself is not, like, a personality trait for your movie. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Stop appropriating time travel culture.
So yeah, 2 out of 10 for me.
I'm with you guys. 2 out of 10. It's not anything. Just for echoing all the reasons you guys said. 2 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so Rotten Tomatoes. This movie's still fairly new, so it doesn't have a unanimous.
It's like only 18
consensus. But the reviews that have come in, 39%. From critics, but 60% from audiences, which is a little high, but I would imagine the people who would rate this movie probably saw it and
Yeah,
chose to see it. Yeah.
it was probably
so-
just like something they put on Netflix like around Valentine's Day, and they're like, "Oh, this is cute," and then that was it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Pretty girl. So I'll give it a high rating. I mean, I'm sure it's probably similar to something like that. So, okay. Our next episode is Matt's Choice.
Yeah,
What'd you get for us?
we're doing the anime movie The Girl Who Leapt Through Time from 2006. The synopsis says a high school girl named Mikado acquires the power to travel back in time and decides to use it for her own personal benefits. Little does she know that she is affecting the lives of others just as much as she is her own.
Very
Um,
interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I think I've heard of it at
Sounds
some point.
interesting. Yeah. I'm into it.
So we gotta do this because this will give us the power of anime. We'll have the anime and God on our side if we do this episode, right? Is that how the meme works?
Oh yeah. I have the power of
God
and anime. Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
terrible joke.
Sorry,
Anyway,
that means-
sorry, I apologize to the listeners for that. That was a dad joke.
It's all right.
But yeah,
All right, so that'll be fun. Social media, we are at Time Travel Trio.
Twio.
Time Travel Twio.
Mallet.
You think I would have done this before? Thank you. We are the Time Travel Trio on Twitter and on Instagram, and we are Time Travel Trio Podcast on Facebook. We are, of course, on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, which you are listening to us on one of those, and we appreciate it. If you'd like to follow us, we would appreciate that as well. If you write us a written review on iTunes, we will make up a fake time travel story about you.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, do it. We'll have fun. And personal, I am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and on Instagram if you'd like to follow me.
I'm at Foreman in Space.
And I'm at Robinson is High.
And
With that,
We are out of
Time.